Hello and welcome back to another video with Matthew Quilliam. This is a video about filling in the gaps. Now I want to make it quite clear from the very offset of this video that you don't always want to fill in any gaps in music. When we're singing a song, of course, we're singing la 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 la, but of course we have to take pauses to be able to breathe. Now in those pauses, this gives an opportunity for either some silence and some stillness, or some other musical material played from either your accompanying ukulele or another member of your band. You don't need to always fill in these gaps. Sometimes some silence is just as good as any musical idea. And so this is not to say that you should always be looking to plug those gaps. Instead, this video is going to give you some ideas of how you could fill those gaps should the need arise. There are so many ways you could fill a gap, and I can't possibly go through every single vamp or fill or anything like that in this short little video, but here are some ideas that you might want to keep in mind. If your song's fairly upbeat and jazzy, you might want to look about having something that is a fill that is fast and jazzy. For instance, the George Formby song With My Little Ukulele in My Hand. With my little ukulele in my hand, I ran along the road for Dr. Brown. See how I went louder in between the singing? So while I was singing I was just accompanying myself with thumb strums, but then in the middle I went a lot louder. What I was doing there was playing some jazzy rhythm in the right hand, doing some triplets, some loud things, and playing about with the chords, doing lots of different jazzy extensions. We had some C7s, C6s, C major 7s in there, all playing about with that kind of jazzy upbeat feel. If you're playing a sadder, slower tempo, you might want to play something that's a little more bluesy and sad. Something a bit like that, for example. Your gaps and fills should always try to emulate the genre of music that you're playing. So if you're playing blues, play lots of blue notes with lots of dissonance and chromatic notes. If you're playing something upbeat and jazzy, then play around with the chord. See what you can come up with. The best way to fill a gap is to look at what chord you're coming from and what chord you're going to. Going back to that George Formby song, for example, the chord goes from C to F. Now, as a general rule, chord 1 of a key and chord 4 can be connected by chord 1-7. What does that mean? Well, in any song, all the chords can be given numbers. So if you're in the key of C, then C becomes 1, and then D is 2, 3 is E, and F is 4. So going from C to F, you can go from a C to a C7 to an F. So if you've got a gap to fill going from C to F, you can play that 7. You can do it in that another key as well. So if you're in the key of D, and you were going to a G, because G is 4 away from D, you can go to a D7. Likewise, if you're going from chord 5 to 1, for example, you can build up the tension by adding loads of extensions and cool notes. So say, for example, you've got to the end of a verse that ends on a G7, and you're in the key of C, and there's a bit of time, a bit of lag time, while you're just getting your breath back and it's coming round to the beginning of the verse again, and you're on that G for quite a while. Well, what can you do to make it more interesting? Well, you could take the G and start playing a G, and you could turn it to a G7, and if you've still got time, turn it into a G plus 7. So you're going from a G to G7 to G plus 7, building and building on that chord. The more you build, the more tension is risen, and the more interesting the gap becomes before you go back to your normal C. Another thing you can experiment with is going from the major chord to the minor chord, or vice versa. If you've got a bit of time to fill on a major chord, such as C, you can go to the relative minor, which is 6 away. C, D, E, F, G, A, so A minor. Or say you're in the key of B flat. The minor is G minor. Or in the key of G, the minor is E minor. Play about with swapping between the major and minors. That could be something that you might want to use. If you like the sound of it, you could throw it in a little gap while you're taking a breath to start singing in the next verse or chorus. You can also do some picking things as well. So say you're in the key of F. flat, so all I was doing was I was on F, and then I went to the note that's 5 away from F, F, G, A, B, C, and then went up 1 to a D. C, D, C, F. So then in the key of, I don't know, E flat, then you want the one that's 5 away and you go up 1, so it would be E flat. With picking, there are so many different fills and things you can do. A good series I would recommend is Phil Dolman's Intros, Vamps and Endings, where you can learn all sorts of interesting picking movements that will help you with those transitions and gaps as well. I hope this little video has given you some food for thought. Go back and try out some of these suggestions I've given you and see if you can come up with your own. See if you can find out what chord you are at and where you're going, and if you can create a nice smooth transition from one to the other while you're taking the time to breathe. It's worth noting you don't want to play anything fancy whilst you're singing, because then you detract from the lyrics and overpower your singing, so you only want to leave the fancy bits for when you're not singing. And sometimes that could even be waiting until you play an instrumental verse or something like that. For more tips and suggestions, I am available for private lessons on the internet, Skype or Zoom, your choice. Just get in touch with me at the website link appearing on screen now. Alternatively, please do subscribe to this YouTube channel where you'll get more free lessons every Monday, as well as performance videos and other things twice throughout the week. I've been Matthew Quilliam, thank you for watching.